going on? All thanks for tuning in once again. It's official. Canelo versus Crawford, 168 super middleweight, undisputed championship titles on the line. What a hell of a fight, historical fight for sure. Let's talk about this. Crawford is gonna come to win. We've seen Canelo fighting Charlo, we've seen him fight Skull, and those guys did not come to win, and we know that. These guys came to survive. Crawford versus Madrimov, that was a very close fight, but Crawford got the nod at the end of it. A lot of feints, a lot of footwork in that fight, not much action, but overall, Crawford did get the nod. I question Crawford's power at 168 just because we never saw it at 154. Crawford basically knocked down every person that he fought at welterweight. Correct me if I'm wrong, I may be wrong. From memory, he beat everyone by stoppage or knockdown in the welterweight division. He's definitely a great finisher. One of the only guys that beat Porter by stoppage. He definitely comes to win, and he knows how to change things up. Great switcher, but he's been fighting southpaw, in his last fights. I don't know if he's going to switch in this one. I think that he needs to switch. He needs to really try everything with Canelo. Canelo's great at what he does. Defensively blessed, one of the best defensive fighters out there, if not the best. Never dropped, never been on the canvas. So it's going to be a very hard fight for Crawford. At 168, he's also been inactive, you could say. He hasn't fought since Madrimov. Correct me if I'm wrong again. Canelo just finished fighting Skull. So Canelo's definitely more active than Crawford. But then again, Crawford has had to put on the weight, getting used to the weight, etc. Who do I see winning this fight? I think it's going to be a case of who can control the fight the best. We haven't seen Canelo control the fight as he wants to. We've seen a lot of guys on the back foot, staying away from him. But if Crawford's going to be back-footed, he's got to throw more. He's got to throw more punches. In this fight, he's got to also throw effective punches. He can't afford to just expect to land flushly on Canelo. Like I say, he's defensively blessed. Canelo's always going to have a big counter punch. So I think that what Crawford needs to do is, if Canelo is going to counter him, he's got to throw a couple of more. He's got to throw more, show the judges that he is the busier fighter. I don't think he can knock down Canelo just because he is as good as he is. He hasn't hit the canvas. He's fought at light heavy. He's fought Kovalev, Triple G. Triple G's definitely a big puncher. So, I don't know if Crawford can drop Canelo, but he can definitely shake him up, I think. I think that he can rock him. He can put him out of his place. But it just depends, it just depends if he can do this after Canelo's landing counters, because Canelo's a big puncher, left hook, right hand. But what I will say is that Crawford's probably quicker. Crawford will have the advantage because he's been fighting at a lighter weight. I know Canelo has fought at welter, but Crawford's fought majority of his career at a lower weight. Canelo's been to light heavy. He's fought Bivol. He's fought big guys. Crawford's fought guys that are quick on their feet. So I think that Crawford will have the foot speed advantage in this fight. You know, Canelo will have the power advantage for sure. So Crawford, you know, I mean, he was great against Porter. You know, he was great against Porter. He was great against Spence. You know, with Porter, he was able to just switch. You know, when he was losing the fight, he just came out and, you know, got the stoppage. With Spence, he managed to land majority of his punches. So he's got to bring both of those into this fight, where he can, you know, land a lot of punches. And I think this is going to be from switching, because Canelo can read the play well. You know, he's going to have to switch. If he is on the back foot, he has to throw more and be effective. But I think that he needs to stay away from the ropes. You know, you can't just do what he done against Spence, stay on the ropes, and then all of a sudden, you know, he's landing big punches and pushing back Spence. I don't think he can do that with Canelo. I don't think he can push him back like that. You know, he's going to have to try to stay in the middle of the ring if he can. You know, stay away from those ropes, because Canelo's, you know, coming for the KO. You know, he's going to come to try to hurt Crawford. You know, he's going to test him. And because Crawford's going to want to fight back, you know, he's going to come to win. He's not coming to survive. It's a big possibility that Canelo lands some huge punches on Crawford. You know, we're going to think, is he going to be able to handle the power? You know, can he handle the power? That's the main question. Can he handle the power? We know that he's got the foot speed. I believe that he will land more punches just because he's, you know, hungry to win. This isn't going to be Charlo on the back foot running away. You know, this is going to be a guy hungry to win. Just remember, you know, against Spence, what he threw, you know, he landed, I believe, over 50% of his punches. You know, correct me if I'm wrong. You know, he threw a lot and landed a lot against Spence. But this isn't Spence, like I say. You know, although Canelo is a hooker, he is a guy that can land big punches. He's also a guy that's got great head movement. You know, he's a guy that can read the play. He can, you know, fight tremendously on the back foot. He can come forward and apply pressure. He doesn't need a jab to initiate his attack. You know, Spence was a guy that needs his jab to start off the combination. And once Crawford shut that down, it was basically a case of just getting schooled, you know, getting beaten up. Canelo doesn't need a jab to start off. You know, he can come with left hooks. Like I say, the right hand, the shoulder roll and head movement. You know, his counter ability is great, Canelo. So as long as Crawford can take the power, you know, he's got a great chance of winning. But I just think that he can't take Canelo's power. I think that Canelo's going to be too big for him, too powerful for him in terms of strength. I know that Crawford's the taller guy, but I just think that Canelo's had more experience taking bigger shots, you know, and he's going to be able to walk through Crawford's punches, and he's going to force him on the ropes. Crawford's going to try to push him back, and I think that Canelo's going to be too strong, too powerful, and I believe that he will win on points. You know, I don't think that Crawford will lose by KO just because of Canelo's, you know, recent fights. He hasn't been able to stop guys, but then again, you know, Crawford isn't going to just be playing it safe. He's going to try to win this one. So I'm going to go with Canelo on points, but what I will say is that I am expecting somebody to get dropped. Whether it's Canelo or Crawford, somebody will get dropped in this fight. As hard as it is to believe that Canelo will get dropped, you know, I just think that Crawford may get desperate in the end, you know, and I think someone will get dropped. That's my take anyway. Leave yours. I'm going Canelo on points. What a great fight. Look forward to the comments, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.